Welcome to CSS Breakdown, book by book, where we delve into the profound insights of literary masters. Today, in Season 04, Episode 20, we turn our attention to Durant's poignant final reflections in Fallen Leaves, exploring his complex and thought-provoking perspective on science, a force he viewed with both awe and profound skepticism. For you, our listener, this deep dive is going to be incredibly valuable. Durant wasn't just a historian, he was, well, a titan, wasn't he? A prolific author whose story of civilization spanned 11 volumes and, half a century of dedicated work.
Absolutely. A lifetime commitment. He spent his life grappling with the vast tapestry of human history, philosophy, and thought.
Exactly. So when a mind so deeply immersed in understanding the human condition turns its formidable intellect to something as foundational as science, his insights aren't merely academic observations.
No, not at all. They're deeply considered, nuanced, and often, frankly, quite surprising.
They really offer a unique lens, a way to examine our own, often complicated relationship with scientific progress today.
And that's precisely our mission with this deep dive. We're not just going to skim the surface of what Durant thought about science. We're going to truly explore the specific contours of his perspective, drawing out his palpable admiration for scientific achievement, absolutely, but also his very precise, sometimes almost radical doubts.
Right. He saw science as this force with immense promise, capable of incredible wonders.
Yet also fraught with inherent dangers. He really gets into that duality. And this isn't, a simplistic pro or anti-science stance from Durant. Not by a long shot.
No.
Instead, it's a deeply considered philosophical position, a profound call for balance, for wisdom, and a critical understanding of science's role in society. He challenges us, really, to look beyond the immediate breakthroughs and to wrestle with the broader implications of our relentless pursuit of knowledge.
All right, let's really unpack this then. Durant kicks off his reflections on science in Fallen Leaves with a statement that might genuinely surprise you. He says he feels outstripped by its progress. And here's the kicker. He expresses a humility towards scientific pronouncements that is strikingly similar, he says, to how he received dictates from priests and nuns in his youth. That immediate, almost audacious connection he draws between science and religion. That's what first stands out, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not a dismissal of science.
No, not at all.
But an observation that it's attained this elevated, almost spiritual status in a way.
That's a keen observation. It feels like more than just him feeling left behind by the speed of it all.
Exactly. This isn't just a personal feeling of being, overwhelmed by rapid advancements. It immediately sets up his central, powerful metaphor. A new priesthood is forming above us.
Wow, a new priesthood.
Yeah, and he paints a remarkably vivid picture of this nascent scientific clergy. He knows that this priesthood speaks a language beyond the ken of their worshippers, which suggests an exclusive domain, right? A realm of knowledge accessible only to the initiated.
Makes you think about your own experience, maybe trying to read a complex scientific paper or something.
Right, or just trying to grasp complex theories that feel almost like a foreign language. Durant was observing this phenomenon decades ago. He recognized that growing chasm between the scientific elite and, the general public.
And the potential danger in that separation.
Precisely. He saw the potential for this separation to create a new kind of intellectual authority, one that, much like the old religious hierarchies, might be accepted on faith, simply because its complexities are beyond the average person's grasp.
So it's not just about how the public sees science, but he also dives into the internal workings of the scientific community itself. He hints at something maybe less than pure objectivity going on there.
He certainly does. He goes on to say that these scientists censor one another with aromatic praise and censor one another with professional jealousy.
Ooh, that's quite a line. Very human.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And deeply revealing. It tells us that even within this supposedly objective pursuit of truth, there are still these internal dynamics at play, professional rivalries, the need for validation. Subtle forms of gatekeeping, exactly, and biases that shape the discourse. It suggests that scientific progress, while driven by data and evidence, isn't some sterile, purely rational pursuit.
It's a human endeavor.
It's a human endeavor, absolutely. Susceptible to all the complexities and, frankly, the frailties of human nature. This internal censor, through praise and jealousy, creates a kind of self-regulating, but also potentially self-preserving system.
Where maybe new ideas could get stifled.
Yeah, possibly. Not necessarily by lack of evidence, but maybe by entrenched interests or, personal animosities. It reminds us that even the most rigorous institutions are ultimately built and run by people.
And the imagery he uses to drive home this idea of scientific authority, it's incredibly potent.
It truly is. He describes him as carrying a split atom before them like a consecrated host.
Wow, that's profound.
Isn't it? It directly connects the ultimate scientific achievement of his time, nuclear fission, unlocking that immense, almost unfathomable power to the most sacred object in the Christian mass.
The consecrated bread.
Right. It immediately elevates science to an almost untouchable mystical authority in the public eye. Humanity has, for millennia, sought to harness the power of the gods, or nature, through ritual and belief. Now, with the splitting of the atom, scientists seem to have unlocked a power so fundamental, so world-altering, that it evoked the same kind of awe, the same reverence previously reserved for the divine.
So we trust them because they have access to this new God.
That's his argument. Because they alone have direct access to God, i.e. to mass times the square of the velocity of light, e-CS8. That equation, which unlocked the secrets of the atomic bomb, becomes the new divine law. The fundamental truth accessible only through this new scientific priesthood.
It's like they've found the new Holy Grail and only they have the map and the language to read it?
Precisely. And while he notes that they differ from priests in allowing heresies among the initiated, the internal debate, questioning, that's crucial to science.
Right, the scientific method itself.
He chillingly adds that if they found an infallible leader, they would be a church.
That's a stark warning against dogma creeping in.
It is. A warning against concentrating intellectual authority, even in science. The potential for a field built on questioning to devolve into unquestioning belief. Furthermore, Durant observes that this scientific elite is as useful and necessary to statesmen as the priests and bishops who surrounded, anointed, and exploited kings.
So connecting science to political power.
Absolutely. Highlighting the significant power dynamics. Scientific findings, technological advancements, they become indispensable tools for state power, much as religious authority once bolstered monarchies.
Like scientific advisors to governments today.
Exactly. Think about public health, national security. It's a symbiotic relationship, though potentially exploitative, as he hints. So what this priesthood metaphor ultimately conveys for you, the listener, is this idea that science, despite its claims of objectivity, can take on a form of social and intellectual authority that parallels historical religious institutions.
Becoming a source of truth accepted on faith, almost.
Yes, because the language and concepts are often beyond direct understanding for many. This can elevate science to an almost unassailable position, wielding immense influence, explicit and implicit, over policy, culture, our whole understanding of reality.
It really challenges us to question not just the findings, but the power structures that emerge around them.
Precisely.
It's easy to get caught up in the critique, though. But Durant was also known for his boundless admiration for human achievement. He clearly wasn't anti-science, was he? He was just deeply analytical.
You're absolutely right to point that out. Despite his critiques and that clever priesthood metaphor, his admiration for scientists and their achievements is palpable. It really comes through. He honors them profoundly for their rigorous methodology. They hold nothing true unless it has been repeatedly verified by experience.
The bedrock of science, empirical validation.
Exactly. Durant, as a historian seeking truth through evidence, clearly respects this foundational principle. He recognized that this systematic approach, this insistence on verifiable evidence, set science apart. It was its greatest strength.
And then he talks about their miracles.
Yes. He salutes them for working miracles more marvelous than most of those that once supported religious faith. That's a powerful statement, isn't it?
It really is. Basically saying, look at what science has actually done compared to what was believed on faith.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't just say it. He gives us some fantastic, concrete examples that really drive the point home. They showcase just how revolutionary these advancements were in his time.
Yeah, they make you think about our modern conveniences and how truly miraculous they would have seemed just a few generations ago.
He provides such vivid illustrations. Take the biblical gift of tongues, often attributed to apostles. Durant says they would be surprised to learn that a United Nations delegate can address 100 persons and be heard a moment later in half 100 languages.
Simultaneous translation technology, something we take for granted now.
Exactly. But utterly mind-boggling in his era. A true marvel, shattering linguistic barriers in real time. Imagine the impact on diplomacy. And then he continues, stating they would bow their heads before a man who, speaking in Washington, could make himself heard at once through half the world.
Radio broadcasting, connecting continents instantly.
Incredible power, bringing a single voice to millions across vast distances. A truly revolutionary concept back then, creating this shared immediate experience.
It's difficult for us to grasp how utterly new and astonishing these things were, living with instantaneous global communication in our pockets.
It really is. He also cites their refusal to believe that a man-made machine was sending us pictures taken on the surface of the moon.
Wow. Anticipating the space age, that's incredible foresight.
Isn't it? The very idea of getting images from another celestial body relayed by a machine built by humans, that was pure science fiction for most people then.
And the Kentucky horse race example.
Ah, yes. That a horse race in Kentucky could be seen as soon, as clearly, and as colorfully in California and Maine as by the spectators on the spot.
Live television broadcasting.
Exactly. Bringing events instantaneously into homes across the country, erasing distance, creating a shared visual experience impossible before without being physically present.
It's a powerful testament to the transformative power of these technologies and the sheer intellectual might behind them.
It absolutely is. He concludes this segment with such a sense of wonder. Verily, we live in another age of miracles, and we behold an astonishing new breed of men. These examples demonstrate the tangible, transformative power of science, not just in theory, but in reshaping daily life, human experience, in profound ways.
So it underscores that his skepticism wasn't a rejection of science's capabilities.
Not at all. It was a critical analysis of its role and perceived infallibility within society. He acknowledges the breathtaking achievements while simultaneously probing the deeper philosophical and societal implications of such immense power.
And for you, the listener, these examples really highlight how much our modern world is built upon these very miracles Durant marveled at.
Yeah, and how easily we can take for granted the incredible scientific and technological progress that has shaped our reality, often without fully understanding the underlying principles or the revolutionary leap they represented.
So having seen Durant marvel at scientific progress, a crucial question emerges. Does this admiration fully define his stance? Well, not entirely. He then reveals a subtle yet profound current of doubt, what he calls a timid doubt that has overflowed from his religious skepticism. He's not afraid to question even the most revered scientific fields.
That's a perfect way to put it. This is truly where his philosopher's hat comes on fully. He applies the same rigorous questioning that led him away from religious dogma to the burgeoning scientific dogmas of his time. He doesn't just express a vague doubt, he pinpoints specific areas of scientific inquiry that make him pause. It shows remarkable intellectual independence.
He actually says it, right, that the skepticism overflowed.
Yes. Something of the skepticism that injured my religious faith has overflowed into timid doubts of science. It's a key insight into his intellectual process. He doesn't compartmentalize his critical faculties, he applies them universally.
Holding all claims to truth, religious or scientific, to the same high standard.
Exactly.
And he goes right for the big ones, doesn't he? The fields that seem to deal with the most fundamental measurements of the universe.
Indeed. He writes, I distrust the astronomers when they calculate the distance of the fixed stars, and the geologists when they tell us the age of the Earth or its strata.
Wow. So he's questioning cosmology and geology.
Well, not rejecting the method, I think, but recognizing the inherent uncertainty and just the colossal scales involved.
Light years. Billions of years.
Right. When you're dealing with those kind of distances or geological eras, the precision of measurement, while impressive, can still feel provisional to a philosopher contemplating the vastness of it all. He's pointing to the limits of human measurement, the inevitable assumptions built into our models, the sheer audacity of trying to pin down such immense quantities with absolute certainty.
It's like the difference between knowing something and knowing that you know it for sure.
That's a good way to put it. It makes you think about how our understanding of the universe or Earth's history is constantly being refined, right?
Definitely. What we thought was definitive shifts with new discoveries, better instruments.
Precisely. And he extends this to physics, saying, I am a bit dubious of the changing pictures by which the physicists represent the inside of the atom.
Ah, the evolving atomic models. Dalton's spheres, plum pudding, Bohr.
Exactly. Each new picture replaced the last, demonstrating that our understanding of the fundamental building blocks isn't static or absolute, but rather a progressive series of approximations. He then vividly describes himself, like Pascal, I am oppressed between the ever-elusive infinitesimal and the unattainable, inconceivable infinite.
That's powerful. Pascal's dread of being caught between the infinitely small and infinitely large.
Yes. Durant is expressing that same intellectual and existential vertigo when confronted with the extremes of scale that modern physics tries to describe. It's a profound human struggle, It's a reminder that even the most rigorous scientific pursuit can lead to this sense of, well, intellectual burden when confronting the ultimate mysteries.
So it's not a doubt about the science itself, maybe, but more about the human capacity to fully comprehend or model these extremes and the provisional nature of that understanding.
I think that's a fair assessment. And then he turns to biology, a field undergoing its own revolution with Darwinism. He honors Charles Darwin as the greatest and gentlest revolutionist in modern European history, which is incredibly high praise from a historian like Durant.
Acknowledging the massive impact of evolution.
Absolutely. But he immediately follows this with a significant caveat. But I note that biologists have not yet explained how a tiny seed can contain a tree or ordain every branch on the trunk, every leaf on the branch, and every line on the leaf.
Pointing to the mystery of development, heredity, how does the blueprint work?
Right. Even with DNA emerging, the full complexity of how a single cell orchestrates the development of a complex organism remained and still remains a wonder. Think about epigenetics, developmental biology today.
It's like he's saying, you've explained the big picture of evolution, but what about the incredible specifics of how life actually builds itself, the underlying agency?
And that leads directly to his deeper philosophical critique of biology. I think that biology has been misled by applying too widely the notion of mechanism and hesitating to credit living things with inherent guiding will.
Whoa, challenging reductionism, the idea that life is just a machine.
Exactly. He's questioning whether all living processes can be fully explained by purely mechanical cause and effect processes. Durant, maybe leaning towards a vitalist perspective that life has some inherent force beyond mechanics, or simply recognizing the limits of mechanism, suggests life might possess an intrinsic, purposeful drive.
Asking if we lose something fundamental about the essence of life when we just reduce it to machinery.
Precisely. So for you, the listener, this section really highlights that even as celebrated historian and philosopher, while respecting science, maintained a healthy skepticism, especially where fundamental mysteries remained or where science seemed to oversimplify the inherent complexity and agency of existence.
It encourages us to remember that scientific understanding is always evolving, and philosophical questions often pop up right at the frontiers of our knowledge,
challenging the very frameworks we use.
It's striking how quickly Durant then moves from these, theoretical, almost esoteric doubts.
Right, about models and biological processes.
To very practical societal concerns about science's application. He transitions almost immediately to this lament, mourning when he sees scientific genius dedicated to massacre, not peace.
This is where his deep moral anguish becomes truly evident. He sees the immense power of science, but laments its often destructive deployment. You can feel the shadow of the world wars and the dawn of the nuclear age here.
Definitely.
He's questioning the very role of scientists in governance and really society's priorities. He explicitly states that he mourns when I see so much scientific genius dedicated to the art of massacre, so little to the organization of peace.
A direct hit on the military-industrial complex.
Absolutely, using scientific innovation for warfare rather than human betterment. He grapples with this profound ethical dilemma. Scientists create powerful tools, but the direction often lies beyond their control, in the hands of politicians or military leaders.
And he points out that scientists might not be suited to rule.
Yes, he says, scientists are not made to rule, since their gift is for handling things, not men. It's a crucial distinction. He respects their technical brilliance, their mastery over the physical world.
But managing matter is different from managing people.
That's his point. The skills are fundamentally different from those needed to lead people, understand complex social dynamics, or navigate the tricky world of human governance and ethics.
So the concern is that the people best at creating the most powerful tools aren't necessarily the best at deciding how they should be used for society's benefit, or preventing misuse.
Precisely. And this leads him to this profound moment of reflection, almost a nostalgic yearning for a simpler time, a powerful counterpoint to the marvels of progress he just praised. He sometimes wonders, as Carlyle did a century ago, would we not be happier if we were living on a medieval farm, accustomed to immemorial poverty, disturbed by nothing beyond our village, and trusting in the wisdom and justice of God?
Referencing Thomas Carlyle's critiques of industrialization. Wow, that's a deep yearning for simplicity.
It is, and a powerful critique of progress that, in Durant's eyes, complicates rather than simplifies life. It's romantic, maybe utopian, but also deeply critical. He's asking, have our scientific and technological advancements truly made us happier? Or have they introduced new anxieties, complexities, maybe even despair?
leading us away from something more fundamental, perhaps more peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't just complain or yearn for the past. He then shifts into full visionary mode, right? Concocting nostrums for these ills, like a futurist with specific plans.
Exactly. He's not just a critic, he's a dreamer and a problem solver, looking decades ahead with remarkable foresight. His nostrums, his proposed remedies, are this fascinating blend of tech innovation and fundamental societal shifts. He's clearly thought deeply about how science could be applied for human good.
Like his ideas on transportation and energy.
Yes. He reveals he pled many years ago for electric automobiles and the replacement of filling stations by centers equipped to quickly recharge exhausted batteries.
That is incredibly prescient, advocating for EVs and charging infrastructure way back then.
Isn't it? A challenge we still grapple with today. He even criticizes the chemists of his time, noting that amid all their miracles have failed to substantially improve the battery in the last 30 years. He saw the bottlenecks.
He sounds like he was already anticipating range anxiety and the need for better energy storage.
Absolutely. And then he goes even further with his dream. So now I dream of electric cables laid safely 6 inches underground in all lanes of our major streets and highways.
Underground cables.
From which cables, every automobile would draw measurable energy by a trolley retractable when changing lanes or directions, in which intervals the car would rely on its own battery.
Dynamic wireless charging on highways. That's still being researched today.
Amazing foresight. Rethinking infrastructure to integrate clean energy seamlessly. And tied into this, he envisions a city clean with electricity produced by nuclear power.
Nuclear power for clean cities. Again, way ahead of the curve, identifying its potential long before the wider debates.
So he's not just dreaming, he's designing the future. But his visions aren't just technological. They extend to how we live, how we organize society, even our dinner tables.
Right, the family farm idea.
Indeed. In his utopia, he proposes that every family, including philosophers, would apply half of its working hours to growing its essential vegetables on a plot of land around or near its house.
A return to a more agrarian, self-sufficient lifestyle. Food security, connection to nature.
Challenging that modern division of labor where food production is totally externalized. However, he's also pragmatic enough to acknowledge the inherent difficulty.
Ah, the reality check.
Yeah. But since the acquisitive nature of man and the competitive spirit of states make this very unlikely, he understands human nature, our desire to accumulate, and global geopolitics pose huge barriers to such idealistic visions.
That's classic Durant. The grand vision, then the sober acknowledgement of human reality.
Yes, and his focus on health and education is equally visionary. He begs our educators to provide plentiful instruction in dietetics, in the knowledge of our bodies, and in the care of our health.
Comprehensive health education. Proactive personal responsibility. Understanding nutrition. Physiology.
And he asks our doctors to devote as much time to preventive as to curative procedures and to put less curative reliance upon drugs and more upon natural cures by diet and physiotherapy.
Wow. A critique of overly pharmaceutical medicine, advocating for holistic preventative care, natural remedies, like modern integrative medicine.
Pretty much. Addressing root causes, not just symptoms. Finally, he expresses a desire for health insurance offered to all ages at moderate cost, as in Great Britain.
Universal health care access.
While crucially adding that he sympathizes with the reluctance of physicians to become governmental employees, so he's balancing the societal good with professional autonomy, the complexities of government involvement.
Trying to find that middle ground.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, Durant's nostrums show his belief that science and tech, guided by wisdom, could solve many ills. His prescience on EVs and nuclear is striking. His holistic approach challenges us to think beyond isolated fixes to more integrated, human-centric solutions.
Considering our environment, bodies, communities, the whole picture. Having explored Durant's doubts about the physical and biological sciences, it's worth noting he applied this same rigorous skepticism to the emerging human sciences of his day. And nowhere was his critique more pointed than with Sigmund Freud and psychoanalysis.
Oh, yes. This section provides a fascinating glimpse into Durant's intellectual independence. He was not one to blindly accept prevailing intellectual trends, no matter how influential. His critique of Freud is detailed, decades long, quite passionate. It reflects his unwavering commitment to critical thinking and his own observations. He states, "Since 1921, I have inveighed against the absurdities of psychoanalysis."
1921. So he was a very early and consistent critic, not just jumping on a later bandwagon.
Exactly. Long before it became fashionable to question Freud, he humorously declares, "I laughed at Freud's dream theories as soon as I read them."
You laughed at them.
Apparently so. And then he provides this very personal, direct rebuttal. I had had sexual dreams, but never disguised them as cutting a cake.
Huh. So he's saying Freud's symbolism seemed, what, contrived?
Exactly. He found Freud's resort to symbolism in interpreting dreams to be merely the bizarre and unconvincing feat of a diseased imagination. He found the interpretations convoluted, strained, and disconnected from his own experience of dreams.
Seeing dreams as more straightforward expressions, not veiled symbols needing complex decoding.
Pretty much. Believing the interpretations were more about the interpreter's biases than the dream itself.
So he wasn't buying into the hidden meanings and complex symbolic stuff.
Not at all. And his critique wasn't just about dreams. He also felt that Freud had exaggerated sex and had underrated economic troubles in generating neuroses.
Bringing in the socioeconomic factors, that's crucial.
Yes, reflecting Durant's broader historical and sociological perspective. He suggested that real, tangible economic hardships, social inequalities, societal pressures were often bigger drivers of mental distress than purely libidinal impulses.
Seeing that as a blind spot in Freud's largely intrapsychic focus.
Right. He also expressed doubts about free association as a means of diagnosis, questioning the reliability and objectivity of a core psychoanalytic technique.
Worried about therapist bias influencing the outcome.
Potentially, yes. And he brings it back to his own experience again with the Oedipus complex, a cornerstone of Freudian theory.
What did he say about that?
He plainly states, I had no memory and had given no reported sign of having hated my father or of having desired my mother sexually. For Durant, the personal absence of these foundational Freudian experiences cast doubt on their universality.
If it wasn't evident in his own life, how universal could it truly be?
That was his question. He then extrapolates, believing that not more than 1 in 100 mental disturbances can be traced to the Oedipus complex, a direct statistical challenge suggesting its rarity, not ubiquity.
Wow. So while he acknowledges that psychotherapy itself can be beneficial,
Right.
he separates that benefit from its Freudian underpinnings, saying the practice works, but maybe not for the reasons Freud proposed.
Precisely. He concedes that psychotherapy has helped many sufferers, but hardly on the basis of Freudian psychoanalysis. He wasn't dismissing mental health care, but the dominant theoretical framework of the time. Believing the healing came from other aspects of the therapeutic relationship, perhaps other approaches not necessarily Freudian interpretations or dredging up repressed trauma.
And he connected it to broader cultural trends.
Yes, observing that the exaltation and exaggeration of Freudian theories and procedures beyond Freud's own practice and desire has been an incident in the sexual revolution in America.
A significant sociocultural commentary, seeing how a scientific theory, amplified, maybe distorted by popular culture,
Can fuel and shape larger societal movements like the sexual revolution.
he suggested the popularization of Freud's ideas contributed to a shift in American attitudes towards sexuality.
Loosening inhibitions, encouraging more open discussion. All right, so for you, the listener, this section reveals Durant's intellectual courage to challenge a widely accepted theory at its height. It underscores his belief in empirical observation, his holistic view of human suffering, including economic and social factors. It's a reminder that even foundational theories are subject to scrutiny and reevaluation, and their societal impact can be profound, even revolutionary.
This fascinating conversation about science eventually leads Durant to, a pretty somber reflection on the dangers of unchecked progress. He sees a looming threat, a significant peril when knowledge outpaces wisdom.
This is truly the heart of his sane skepticism. He deeply understood that while science offers solutions, incredible boons, it often creates new, unforeseen problems, especially when immense power outstrips the collective wisdom to wield it. He encapsulates this perfectly. Every solution bears a new problem. That cyclical nature of progress.
Like the internet bringing connectivity but also misinformation. Genetic engineering promising cures but raising ethical dilemmas. Climate change.
Exactly. He warns that the progress of science has brought new evils with new boons, acknowledging that the forces enabling advancement also carry seeds of destruction. And then the chilling warning aimed squarely at the nuclear age.
The bomb.
Yes. Its latest victory has given frail minds the power to destroy Western civilization. Unequivocally, nuclear weapons, the ultimate expression of scientific power unleashed without sufficient ethical or political control.
This sounds like a direct, anguished response to the Cold War era. The constant threat must have felt terrifyingly real.
It absolutely is. He describes the global situation as advancing pugnaciously to the brink of total war. And he doesn't shy away from detailing the dire consequences. He paints a stark, almost apocalyptic picture. Science itself might be finished, suggesting the whole intellectual infrastructure labs, universities would collapse, plunging humanity back into ignorance.
Survivors fleeing devastated cities.
Fleeing devastated and poisoned cities to the countryside to find or grow food. A desperate scramble for survival. The age of great cities would end, leading to a rural dark age, which he chillingly compares to the triumph of the barbarians over decadent Rome. That imagery is incredibly powerful. Total societal collapse. Regression.
Not just physical destruction, but a complete societal reset, losing millennia of accumulated knowledge and civilization.
Precisely. And in this desperate scenario, he predicts that religion would revive as the consolation of desperate souls, a natural human response to overwhelming catastrophe, seeking meaning and comfort. And most poignantly, men would curse the science that had given them powers beyond their intelligence.
That really highlights the core tension. Knowledge without wisdom isn't just incomplete, it's dangerous.
Exactly. A condemnation of brilliance without foresight, power without ethical guidance. The tragic irony that the tools meant to improve life could be turned to end it.
Given this dire warning, though, he still acknowledges the necessity of scientific pursuit, right? But with a crucial qualifier.
Yes, he states, we need more knowledge and must submit to a heavy stress upon science in education and government. He's pragmatic. He understands that international challenges force us to keep pace with every technological advance.
Referencing the Cold War arms race, the need for technological parity for survival.
Right. We can't just abandon scientific progress in a competitive world. It's a matter of national and global security. However, and this is the key, he immediately counters this with his ultimate plea, his central message. But we need something more than knowledge. We need the wisdom and conscience to use our knowledge humanely.
The profound distinction. Knowledge is what we know. Wisdom is how we use it. Conscience is the moral compass.
Beautifully put. And this wisdom and conscience must provide a perspective of the moment in the vista of years past and years to come. Meaning we need context.
Understanding our present actions within history, learning from the past with an eye on future consequences, serving long-term flourishing.
Exactly. So for you, the listener, Durant's stark warning resonates deeply today. Climate change, AI ethics, genetic engineering. His message is timeless. Our intellectual and technological capacity has outstripped our ethical and political maturity. Civilization hinges on cultivating the wisdom to wield our power responsibly.
Despite these stark warnings, these almost apocalyptic visions, Durant doesn't leave us in despair, does he? He pulls back, reminding us of humanity's enduring capacity for greatness. There's this profound optimism shining through.
This is the profound, resilient optimism that truly underpins his entire worldview, despite all the critiques. He acknowledges human folly, countless blunders, but simultaneously celebrates our unparalleled capacity for beauty, truth, and peace. He declares unequivocally, I do not despair. That simple statement is so powerful. His fundamental belief in the human spirit's potential to transcend errors, achieve extraordinary things.
The drive for creation over destruction.
Yes. He acknowledges that man has committed a million blunders, evident to our hindsight, but has done great and noble things. He doesn't sugarcoat our mistakes, but balances it with appreciation for our species' highest achievements, our dual nature.
And he gives us this masterclass in human accomplishment, spanning millennia, diverse fields. It's a real intellectual and emotional uplift after those warnings.
He truly does. He reminds us of profound philosophical and spiritual contributions. Man has given us the words of Christ and the ethics of Spinoza, bridging religious revelation with rigorous philosophical thought, moral and intellectual insight.
Then architectural wonders.
Built the Parthenon and Notre Dame de Paris. Timeless structures embodying artistic vision, engineering prowess, spiritual aspiration, monuments to collective human endeavor.
Not just buildings, but expressions of creativity, devotion, sheer will.
Exactly. And he doesn't stop. Artistic masterpieces. Man has adorned the Sistine Chapel, that breathtaking peak of Renaissance painting, and written the Iliad, the foundational epic. The Trojan Women, that poignant Greek tragedy on war's costs, the Divine Comedy, Dante's epic journey, Hamlet, Shakespeare's iconic exploration, Phaedra, Racine's masterful tragedy.
Wow. Epic poetry, Greek tragedy, medieval allegory, Shakespeare, French classicism, a testament to our boundless literary imagination.
Exploring the deepest facets of the human condition. Then musical triumphs. Man has composed the Messiah, Handel's iconic oratorio, and the lament of Orpheus for Eurydice, evoking that profound emotional depth and beauty music can achieve.
Transcending sorrow into art. It's a panorama of the human spirit at its finest, a reminder of what we're truly capable of.
And finally, he offers glimmers of political wisdom and peace, a direct counterpoint to his earlier lament about war. Sometimes, like Ashoka and Augustus, he has dared to call off the dogs of war.
Ashoka the Great turning to nonviolence, Augustus ushering in the Pax Romana.
Right. Examples demonstrating Durant's belief that even amidst conflict and aggression, there are moments, leaders, who choose peace and cooperation, showing a path toward a more harmonious future. It provides that crucial counter-narrative to the potential for destruction, a broader definition of human achievement beyond just science and tech, including moral and political leadership.
So for you, the listener, this section is Durant's ultimate message of hope. A reminder that while we possess the capacity for immense destruction,
We also possess an extraordinary, undeniable capacity for creating beauty, truth, and fostering peace. It challenges us to hold these two potentials in tension, recognizing our shadows but always striving for our light.
So we've navigated Durant's complex landscape, the awe, the skepticism towards science. He honors its miracles, critiques its misapplications, dreams of its utopian potential, and ultimately issues that profound call for wisdom to guide its immense power. He really leaves us with a lot to consider about our own relationship with knowledge and progress in this rapidly evolving world.
He absolutely does. And his final questions resonate so deeply, don't they? A powerful concluding challenge tying all his reflections together. He asks, "Who now will arise to harness our knowledge to wisdom, our science to conscience, our power to humane purposes, our jealous sovereignties to a federated peace?
Yeah.
And who will call a halt to hatred and organize a Pax Christiana for our shattered, murderous, suicidal world?"
Those aren't rhetorical questions. They're a direct plea for leadership, for a collective awakening, to guide humanity away from self-destruction towards something better.
Towards a lasting, universal peace rooted in shared values and cooperation.
Powerful questions that leave us, the listener, with so much to ponder. It challenges us to not just consume knowledge or marvel at tech, but to actively participate in shaping how it's used, how it's integrated with our values, our shared future. It's a call to action for each of us, isn't it? To consider our role in bridging that gap between what we can do and what we should do.
Indeed. It forces us to ask ourselves, are we merely accumulating facts and building powerful tools, or are we developing the discernment, the ethical framework, to ensure these tools truly serve our highest human purposes, for a future we all actually want to inhabit?
And on that note, consider this. In an age where scientific advancement continues at an unprecedented pace, are we, as a society, cultivating the wisdom and conscience that Durant passionately advocated for? Or are we still at risk of being outstripped by our own creations? What small step can you take to bridge the gap between knowledge and wisdom in your own life or community?